BD here, welcome back to the YouTube channel, and in this video, we are talking about Venom: The Last Dance. We're going to review it, give it a score out of 10 at the end, and we're also going to talk about the Sony Marvel movies and why they're all a little bit messy in their narrative schemes. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel because we are closing in on 30,000 subscribers, which makes me more excited than Venom when he's about to eat some brains. Spoilers ahead, let's jump in. First of all, is Venom 3 a good movie? I can't say that I think it is. Listen, I had an absolute blast watching this film. I laughed a lot. Sometimes I was laughing with it. Sometimes I was laughing at it. Tom Hardy as Eddie in Venom is just a gift to the comic book movie world. It's absurd how committed he is to this role and how he simultaneously seems to be having so much fun with it. Watching him play this part is pure entertainment, and it also even managed to throw a bit of heart in there, and it came out of nowhere, which made me want to be like, oh, piss off, Venom 3. What do you think this is? One second you got Venom calling Lady Luck a fickle slut, and the next second Eddie is being told he'd be a good dad. I'm not ready for these feels. How dare you? All the stuff with the scientist where it tries to get serious and dump some exposition on us just wasn't good. It didn't work for me. The wild, ridiculous silliness and sometimes emotional Venom scenes were a blast, and then all of a sudden we're in these cold, serious, and not really entertaining sequences with Juno Temple and Chiwetel Ejiofor's characters. And that's where the movie would really lose me. It would trail off and I would just lose interest in those moments. The villain of this film, by the way, Null, did he really matter? This dude had less of a role in the movie than Thanos did in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and it didn't really make me care to see him again in a future movie. Now, yes, I know Null from the comics has a lot of potential and could be very, very cool and a big threat, but every time Null was on the screen, I felt like I was watching a video game cutscene, and it just felt kind of cheap and gimmicky, like, yes, we're going to throw a comic book name in this movie, that's going to get people talking, therefore it's going to sell some tickets, and I just didn't really end up caring about Null at all in this movie. Also, that credit scene clearly is trying to set up Null for a future story, but if Eddie and Venom are not together in this and Tom Hardy's not coming back because this is being advertised as their last dance, why do I care? There's no protagonist in this franchise for me to care as wanting to see them go up against Null. Like, Null's a very cool villain in comics, but you need a good protagonist to be rooting for to fight him. So, what are we doing? But this is where we have to talk about the Sony Marvel of it all. I do think a lot of us fans are a little bit tougher and harsher on Sony Marvel movies because they're not MCU titles, but they're often marketed and teased as being possible MCU titles, or at least Spider-Man movies of some sort. And the marketing teams know we'll buy that. I mean, this all started when Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige did that interview next to each other, and all the fans remember this one, when she said Venom was part of the MCU storyline, and Kevin Feige just kind of sat there and became a meme. So I asked Kevin Feige, hey, is Venom part of the MCU? Are you guys working on Venom movies at all? And he said, no, there were no plans for Venom in the MCU. Now, that was many years ago. That could always change. But the way that the marketing teams for the Sony Marvel movies try to make it seem like this is going to have an MCU crossover, or they use Spider-Man as bait and then the graffiti on the wall doesn't even end up being in the movie, let alone Spider-Man himself, it feels like a betrayal. And for that reason, I think a lot of fans get riled up. Not just that, the movies just aren't great. Morbius, Madam Web, these Venom films, like, at least the Venom movies are fun, which is more than you can say about those other two. But then there's also the elements of, like, Sony stories seemingly going rogue in hopes of kind of forcing the hand of a crossover. Like, why did Michael Keaton's Vulture show up in the Morbius credit scene? Narratively, that doesn't make any sense, nor does it get me excited to see those two interact. And on top of that, the closest we're actually going to come to Tom Hardy's Venom interacting with Tom Holland's Spider-Man is Venom seeing Spider-Man on a TV screen, all for that symbiote being left behind in what we thought was the sacred timeline of the MCU to be essentially retconned by Venom 3. All these things are starting to lose our trust. And honestly, Marvel Studios is guilty of losing a bit of our trust in post-credit scenes as well. But these Sony movies keep doing it over and over again, both in marketing and in credit scenes, and there's been no payoff or crossover, just a bunch of bait that doesn't go anywhere. And personally, I don't believe there was ever actually a plan, maybe a hope, but never actually a plan for Spider-Man to cross over with Tom Hardy's Venom, despite Tom Hardy constantly saying he wants to cross over with Spider-Man like he did at New York Comic Con this year. Watch this.
I would love to fight Spider-Man. I would like to fight him now.
Are you talking as Tom or as Venom right now?
Both.
Yeah.
I'm happy to fight Spider-Man today. We set some rules. You know what I mean? And in a movie, 100%. I'm well up for it. So I would never say never on this.
When I was in Navy Junior ROTC in high school, I had an instructor who would say, failing to plan is planning to fail. And ultimately, I think that that is what's happening with these Sony Marvel movies. I don't think there's enough of a plan in place. And instead of getting a good Venom trilogy, crossovers with Spider-Man, and maybe also the MCU, we're getting sort of what we saw happen with the Star Wars trilogy, where it's just kind of a bunch of stuff being thrown out there and handed to the next person. I mean, we're all waiting with bated breath to get an update on Beyond the Spider-Verse, which was announced to release 6 months after Across the Spider-Verse, but my understanding is that they're back in the script phase despite having a massive cliffhanger at the end of Across the Spider-Verse. They were still trying to figure out how to end the whole thing, and that's why the movie is so delayed. And don't even get me started on why Andrew Garfield couldn't have just shown up and been the Spider-Man of this Venom universe. I think everybody would have lost their minds, but for the life of me, I can't figure out why Sony has the license to a character like Spider-Man and chooses not to throw him into movies based on Spider-Man villains. Part of me is like, hey, tinfoil hat's getting a little tight. It's telling me that there must be an agreement where if Marvel Studios and Disney are working with Sony, Sony can't use the Spider-Man character while the Avengers movies use Tom Holland's version, or maybe Tom Holland's actor contract has a clause that says he can be the only Spider-Man at once in live action unless it's in a movie with him. It's all speculation. I just am trying to make sense of why Spider-Man villain movies refuse to use Spider-Man. So for now, let's just talk about the overall score for Venom: The Last Dance. For me, this one is a 5.9 out of 10. It's definitely the best of the Venom movies. I would rank them 3, 1, 2. And that's thanks to Tom Hardy's balls-to-the-wall madness that he puts on display in these films. I think he is the glue that is trying so hard, like Spider-Man at the ferry, to keep it all together. But was I entertained? Yeah, hell yeah. I had a great time. I was laughing with and at this movie. I mean, they took the symbiotes and basically made them into a Power Ranger squad that was getting thrown into a wood chipper and spit out like a colorful Christmas tree. Oh yeah, there was a character named Christmas in this movie. I also really want to shout out the writer and director of Venom: The Last Dance, Kelly Marcel. Kelly has never ever directed anything before this movie. She's been a part of the Venom franchise with Tom Hardy and clearly has a good time working with him and a great rapport with the actor, but she's never done a music video. She's never done an episode of a television series, and she dove into the deep end fearlessly and took on Venom: The Last Dance. And listen, good action scenes, sometimes a little hard to follow, but they're still solid. The wood chipper stuff I mentioned was very creative. The VFX worked well enough, and there are moments of heart thrown into this movie, even though it's completely ridiculous, and I was like, yo, you're out of pocket for making me feel things right now. She made us feel things with the script and the directorial choices, and I think Kelly Marcel's directorial debut, I can't help but be impressed with it overall. I know I'm not super impressed with the movie, but Kelly Marcel jumping in and making this movie the way she did, I have a lot of respect for it. It's all silly, it's all in good fun, and for me it's a 5.9 out of 10. What would you rate Venom: The Last Dance out of 10? Do you think we will see Tom Hardy play Venom again in a crossover with a Spider-Man character in an upcoming movie? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and please continue to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, exclusive interviews, breakdowns, reviews, and all sorts of stuff. I'm BD. I'll see you in the next video.